The day I went to see the new house with my brother was the first time I met his fiancée Penelope. She was a self-proclaimed banking elite who had just returned from London. She blocked me at the door, her eyes filled with nothing but disgust. "You're just a delivery girl, stay outside. Don't you dare track dirt into my new house." I froze on the doorstep, stunned by her arrogance. My brother Silas stood beside her and let out a dry, awkward laugh. "Your sister-in-law spent a lot of time abroad, Sloane. She's a straight shooter, don't be sensitive. She doesn't mean anything by it." I didn't want to make a scene on such a big day, so I turned to leave. But as I walked away, I heard her muffled, mocking voice behind me. "She looks so fragile. If she's really just delivering food, that's one thing, but I've seen girls like her. They don't just deliver pizza at night." She paused, a suggestive nasty giggle following her words. "They deliver themselves. It's disgusting." My footsteps faltered for a split second. Then I smiled. I turned around and walked straight to the sales office. "That down payment I just wired, refund it now." "Miss Sloane, are you sure you want to cancel the purchase? If you back out now, there's a 2% processing fee." The real estate agent looked at me with concern. "That's roughly $100,000. Hearing the number, I let out a soft, cold laugh. "That's pocket change. I'd rather throw it in the trash than let a woman like her live on my dime." The agent was speechless. I didn't say another word and walked out. As I rounded the corner, I ran right into Silas and Penelope. Her voice wasn't loud, but she wasn't trying to hide it either. "Listen, Silas, I only agreed to marry you because you showed some initiative and promised to put this house in my name." Silas kept his head down, saying nothing while he carried her designer bags. She let out a sharp, mocking snort. "I work in private banking. I deal with high net worth individuals every day. Do you even realize who I am? A family with your background, I'm doing you a favor." Her tone grew even colder. "Especially that sister of yours, a grown woman running around as a delivery driver. It's embarrassing to even mention her." Silas remained silent. She was on a roll now, fueled by his submission. "She better not try to cling to me later. Don't you dare think I'm going to help her find a real job. I'm closing a massive deal next week and it's going to get me a VP promotion. Tell your sister to stay out of my way." Silas nodded repeatedly, looking pathetic. I know, don't worry, I won't let her bother you." I stood there motionless, watching the shadow of the brother I used to know. She seemed to lose all restraint then. "I've seen plenty of girls like her when I was in the UK, believe me, her line of work is rarely clean. These delivery girls," she smirked, "who knows what they're doing for tips after dark." Right then she looked up and saw me. The air went dead silent for a moment. I looked her in the eye and smiled. "Why'd you stop? Please continue. What exactly do they do after dark?" Silas's face turned pale. He immediately stepped forward to cut me off. "What's with that attitude, Sloane? Is that how you talk to your future sister-in-law?" I didn't move. I just kept my eyes on Penelope. She recovered quickly, her sharp features smoothing into a mask of fake concern. "Don't blame me for being blunt, I'm saying this for your own good. If you weren't Silas's sister, I wouldn't waste my breath." She sighed dramatically. "I know you didn't have much of an education, I get that you want to make money. You don't have real skills like I do, but you shouldn't take the easy way out. Using your body for money, that's how you ruin a family's reputation." I let out a sharp laugh, ready to tear her apart. But Silas grabbed my arm, pulling me back. "Enough, Penelope treats you like family, that's why she's being honest with you. Stop being so ungrateful." He pulled at me and suddenly I found the whole thing hilarious. I didn't know if Penelope was being honest, but my dear brother, he was definitely heartless. Seeing Silas take her side, Penelope's ego swelled even more. "Forget it. I understand, a multi-million-dollar house like this, some people only get to see the front door in their lifetime. It's natural to be jealous. This place is going to be in my name soon, I can't wait to start decorating." Right then my phone buzzed with a text. "Miss Sloane, your refund for the property has been processed. A total of $4.9 million has been credited to your account." I swiped the notification away, locked my screen and walked away. "Fine, my dear brother, my dear sister-in-law. I hope you enjoy moving into a house that doesn't exist." That evening, as soon as I finished work, my mom called. "Get home right this instant." The second I opened the door, before I could even step inside, my mom grabbed my arm. "Penelope loves that house, go pay the remaining balance now." I didn't get a chance to speak before Silas stood up from the sofa. "What was that stunt you pulled at the sales office today? It was your first time meeting Penelope and you humiliated her like that." I stared at him. "I humiliated her? She called me a sex worker to my face, did you miss that part?" Silas narrowed his eyes. "She just lived in the West for too long, she's direct, stop making such a big deal out of nothing. Besides, so what if she said a few words? She was looking out for you." I smiled though my heart felt like lead. "I'm making a big deal out of it?" "Fine," I said, locking eyes with him. Since she loves the house so much, buy it yourselves. Why are you asking me for money? Silas's expression turned ugly. My mother's face darkened instantly. How dare you talk to your brother like that? Your brother is the pillar of this family. What's wrong with you helping him out a little? I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Why is he always right? Why am I always the one who has to sacrifice? My mom's voice turned ice cold. A family needs a man to lead it. A girl like you, what use are you to us in the long run? I looked at her and said nothing. I had been hearing that sentence for years. When my dad was sick, they told me someone had to stay home to care for him. They made me drop out of school. I only finished my degree later by working 3 jobs and winning every scholarship available. After Dad passed, I got accepted into a top-tier grad program abroad. I thought my life was finally on track. Then they stole every penny I had saved from 4 years of work. They used it to bribe people to get Silas a job. When I confronted them back then, they said the same thing. What's the point of a girl having a high degree? A family relies on its men. They forced me to give up my dreams and work to support them. I opened my mouth to say something, but I just nodded instead. I have work, I'm leaving. I turned to go. Silas chased me to the door. Look at you, you make a little money and suddenly you don't know your place. Running around all night, who knows what shameful things you're doing. The next morning I had just fallen asleep after working through the night when my bedroom door was kicked open. My mom was standing there, her face a mask of rage. Silas and Penelope were right behind her. Penelope glanced at the clothes hanging in my room and smirked. I knew I wasn't wrong, that was definitely her last night. I frowned sitting up. What is this? Do none of you know how to knock? Penelope snorted. Your house sounds nice. Too bad it was probably paid for by some old man. Silas threw his phone onto my bed. Is this you in the photo? The screen was bright, the photo was grainy, taken in a dimly lit high-end lounge. Bottles of expensive champagne were on the table. I was sitting in the middle of a group of men. I started to speak. My mom's face was ghostly white. Is that you? Answer me. I nodded. Yes, but that was from yesterday. Penelope cut me off instantly. See, I told you, they didn't believe me. Sloane, you're a disgrace to independent women everywhere. I was momentarily dazed. I was only there for work. Penelope laughed. Oh, I'm sure you were, she said, emphasizing the last word with pure malice. Working hard. I was so angry I almost laughed. You're saying anyone in a place like that isn't doing real work? Then what were you doing there? Silas grew impatient. How can you even compare yourself to Penelope? She's a London grad, she works in a bank, she has professional networking events. What's your excuse? I looked at him and a sudden sharp laugh escaped me. Right, I could have gone abroad too, couldn't I? Why exactly didn't I get to go, Silas? My mom jumped in immediately. That's enough, I've told you 1,000 times. Why does a girl need such a high education anyway? I stared at her. Then why does Silas need to marry a woman who studied abroad? My mom's expression hardened. That's different. She's going to be a daughter-in-law of this family. You're going to marry out. You're an outsider. The air in the room seemed to vanish. I stopped talking. My chest felt like it was being crushed. Seeing my face go pale, my mom softened her tone just a fraction. Look, regardless of all this, you need to handle the house payment today. Don't hold your brother back at such a critical moment. I didn't respond. They turned and left. As the door clicked shut, I heard the neighbors whispering in the hallway. I didn't think Miss Sloane was in that kind of business. It must be true, her own family said so. I stood in the center of the room, my hands slowly unclasping. I collapsed back onto the bed. The ceiling was a blur of white, my mind was a mess. All these years I had worked myself to the bone to prove my worth to this family. And in the end all I was an outsider. I turned off my phone and left town for a few days to clear my head. I decided I was done managing their lives. When I finally returned and turned my phone back on, my mom called instantly. I expected a screaming match, but her voice was surprisingly warm. You're back. Come to dinner, we're welcoming you home. I hesitated, but I went. When I pushed open the door to the private dining room, my mom spoke first. You're here, good. We were waiting for you. Silas forced a smile. I was wrong the other day, Sloane, I'm sorry. We're family, let's just move past it. Penelope even gave me a small smile. Don't be mad, sister, I just have a big mouth, don't take it to heart. I watched their performance with a blank face. When people who hate you are suddenly nice, they want something. Sure enough, before the main course arrived, Silas couldn't help himself. Sloane, about the house. I set my glass down and cut him off. I don't have the money. Silas's smile faltered, but he quickly recovered. I know you're still upset, it's okay, we've been thinking. He paused. We don't need the new house, we'll just use your current place. I looked at him genuinely confused. What are you talking about? He spoke as if he were being generous. We talked it over, your apartment is huge, it's a waste for one person to live there. Just transfer the title to us, it'll be our wedding home. I let out a cold laugh. And where am I supposed to live? My mom chimed in. You can just rent a small studio, can't you? It's not like you have a professional career to maintain anyway. I burst out laughing. Silas's face darkened completely. You still consider us family, don't make this difficult. I leaned back in my chair, mocking them with my gaze. Not happening. Penelope finally snapped, her fake composure shattering. Fine, I'd feel dirty living in a place bought with that kind of money anyway. I nodded. Good point, stay far away from my house. After all, you're an independent woman, right? Her face turned bright red. Suddenly she looked toward the door, her eyes lighting up. What a coincidence, that's my bank manager walking by. He said he'd introduce me to a major client today. Once I close this deal I can buy any house I want. Silas immediately added. See, Penelope has real talent. That's what a foreign education gets you, even the manager respects her. My mom joined in scolding me. Look at her, she knows how to build a life. You'll regret this when your brother and his wife are millionaires. Penelope glanced back at me, her eyes dripping with contempt. Some people just aren't on our level. I said nothing. Just then the door to the suite was pushed open and a middle-aged man in a sharp suit walked in. Penelope stood up instantly wearing a sycophantic smile. Manager. The man didn't even glance at her. He walked straight to me. His name was Director Huang. I had known him for 3 years through the bank's private wealth division, where my holdings were managed under a holding company name. He was impeccably dressed and had the specific quality of attention that very senior people in finance develop, the ability to make whoever they are addressing feel like the only person in the room. He extended his hand. Miss Sloan. I apologize for interrupting your evening. Our head of private banking asked me to personally pass on the confirmation. The Series C documents closed this afternoon. Congratulations. I shook his hand. Thank you for telling me in person. He glanced briefly at the people seated at the table. I didn't introduce them. He didn't ask me to. When it's convenient, he continued, the chairman has requested a meeting. The new logistics infrastructure partnership has everyone very excited. Your expansion model was exceptional work. I said I would have my assistant reach out. He gave a small, respectful nod and left. The room was very quiet after that. I sat back down. I took a sip of my water. Penelope was still standing. She had risen when she thought Director Huang was there for her, and she was still on her feet now, and her expression had passed through several things in rapid succession, the confidence, the expectation, the confusion, and now something that hadn't settled into a shape yet. Her mouth opened. There must be a misunderstanding. She said it carefully, the way you say something while still believing it might be true. He came to the wrong table. He didn't, I said. But, she gestured at the room, at me, at the general situation. You work nights. You're a delivery, I own the company, I said. I work shifts sometimes because I like to know what my drivers are dealing with on the ground. She stared at me. I own most of the block the company's logistics hub sits on. I'm also a significant shareholder in 3 of the bank's mid-tier corporate clients, which is why Director Huang knows my name. The silence stretched. Silas's face had gone a color I didn't have a word for. My mother had put her chopsticks down. Penelope sat down slowly, like someone whose legs had made a decision before her brain caught up. I watched her try to reassemble something. She was good at performance, she'd spent years cultivating the kind of confidence that came from believing she was always the most important person in any room. But this was a different kind of room now, and she knew it, and watching her try to recalibrate in real time was something I had not expected to feel the way I felt it. Not triumphant. Just tired. Just finally, completely tired of all of it. You made us think, she started. Her voice was different. The edges that had always been in it, the condescension, the amused contempt, they were gone. What was left sounded almost plaintive. You were working nights. I looked like someone whose time and dignity you decided you didn't have to respect, I said. And you were right about one thing. I didn't tell you who I was. That part's true. Then why didn't you? Because it shouldn't have mattered. I looked at her directly. You treated me the way you treated me before you knew anything about my finances. What you thought of me, the things you said, the insinuations, you made all of that up based on how I was dressed and where I worked. The money has nothing to do with whether that was acceptable. She didn't answer. I looked at my brother. He had been quiet since Director Huang left. He was looking at the table and not at me. Silas. He looked up. How long, I said, do you think you've been living on money I provided? His jaw moved. The apartment I helped pay your rent on when you first moved out. The bribe, and I will call it what it was, to get you your first position. The money from Dad's house that paid for your start. I set my glass down. Do you know how many years of my own work that represented? He opened his mouth. We're family. You thought I understood, I said quietly. I know. You kept saying that. You thought I understood that understanding meant absorbing everything without question and never asking for anything in return. That's not. You let her call me a sex worker in front of strangers and in front of our mother, and your response was to tell me I was being sensitive. That was not a misunderstanding. That was a choice. He looked at the table again. I turned to my mother. She had been watching me the way she sometimes watched things she couldn't quite process. Her expression was not the cold hostility it had been yesterday or the day before. It was something older and harder to look at. A girl like you, she had said, so many times. A girl doesn't need. A girl should sacrifice. A girl marries out. As if I had been born temporarily, a placeholder until I could be handed to someone else and stop being their problem. I had built everything I had despite that sentence. In opposition to it. Fueled by the particular anger of someone who has been told what they cannot do and has decided to find out themselves. Mom, I said. She looked at me. I'm not going to say you didn't love me. I don't think that's true. I think you loved me the way you were taught to love daughters, with conditions built in, with an expiration date, with the assumption that my life was less important than his. Her eyes were filling. I understand where that came from. I do. But I need you to understand that understanding it doesn't make it not hurt. And it doesn't mean I'm going to keep accepting it because I love you. She reached across the table. I moved my hand. Not to be cruel. Because I needed her to hear me without me softening it by letting her hold my hand through it. I spent years trying to earn my place in this family, I said. I am done earning it. The dinner ended shortly after. There was no dramatic explosion. No screaming. Penelope made one more attempt at the door, grabbed my arm lightly, her voice very different from anything I had heard from her before. I didn't mean it, she said. About what you did. I was wrong about you. I looked at her hand on my arm. She let go. I know you didn't mean it about who I am, I said. But you meant it about someone. Every word you said, about women like that, about what delivery girls do after dark, you meant that about someone. I just happened to be the wrong person for you to say it to. Her face did something complicated. That's the part you should think about, I said. Not what it cost you to say it to me. I left. What followed unfolded in the way that things unfold when a financial foundation is quietly removed from under a structure people assumed was permanent. I called my accountant that night. The discretionary transfers to the family account, the amounts that had been going out monthly under various descriptions, rent supplements, household support, incidentals, those stopped. I transferred the documentation to my lawyer. There was paperwork to handle regarding the property Silas believed he had some claim to based on years of vague family expectation. He had no legal basis for that claim and my lawyer was efficient. The eviction notice on the apartment I had been subsidizing arrived by courier 9 days later. Silas called 14 times in those 9 days. I answered on the 10th day. Not because I owed him an answer, but because I needed to say one thing. I said, I want you to know I'm not doing this from hatred. He was crying. I could hear it. You're my sister. I know. We're family. Family, I said carefully, is not the same as unconditional financial access. Those are two different things and you have been treating them as the same thing for a very long time. He said he was sorry. He said it several times. He said he didn't know. He said he should have known. He said Penelope was wrong and he had been cowardly and he had protected her at my expense and he knew it now. I believed him. That was the part one hadn't expected. I believed the apology was genuine. I also knew that genuine apologies don't undo patterns, and that what Silas was mourning wasn't me specifically, it was the version of me that had existed to absorb whatever was required of her. The sister who paid and sacrificed and stayed and never left. He had loved that version. He was grieving it now. I am not that person anymore, I said. I haven't been for years. You just didn't notice. Sloane, I forgive you, I said. For my own sake. Not to restore the relationship. Just because carrying it is expensive and I'm done paying costs I didn't choose. I hung up. Penelope's promotion was formally put on hold 2 days after the dinner. I know this not because I made a call or applied any pressure but because Director Huang's subsequent message to my office included a brief professional note. Management had reviewed certain behavioral information that had come to their attention and the VP candidacy was being re-evaluated for suitability. I made no specific request. I told no specific story. What had happened was simpler, I was a significant client. The bank had an interest in understanding the conduct of its employees toward significant clients. Someone in the private banking division had been present when Penelope grabbed my arm in the restaurant lobby. Someone else had connections. Information moved the way information moves in professional environments, which is to say quietly and thoroughly. Penelope called my personal number once. I didn't recognize the number and answered. She said my name like it was an apology in itself. I waited. She said, I know there's nothing I can say. I know that. I want you to know that I am not that person. Which person? I asked. She didn't answer immediately. The person you were the whole time you were saying those things, I said. The one who decided what a woman was worth based on what she was carrying and what she was wearing. That person exists, Penelope. She made specific choices. I'm not the record keeper of your conscience. That's your work to do. She started to say something else. I said, I hope you figure it out. I ended the call. My mother came to my office 3 weeks later. I had a real office now, not a room in a warehouse or a desk at a logistics hub. A proper floor in a building downtown, with a reception area and assistants who called me by my title and colleagues who had never once questioned whether I deserved to be there. She came in with her coat buttoned up and her bag held in front of her the way she held things when she was nervous. She looked around the space with an expression that I watched carefully. She wasn't performing. That was clear. She was just looking. My assistant brought her tea. She wrapped both hands around the cup. I sat across from her. She said, I don't know when this happened. I said, it happened while you were watching Silas. She closed her eyes. I'm not saying that to hurt you, I said. I'm saying it because it's the answer to what you're asking. When she opened her eyes she was crying. Not demonstratively. Just quietly, the way people cry when they've stopped performing the emotion and are simply in it. Your father, she said, and then stopped. I waited. She put her hand into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Old. The seal had been opened and resealed with tape at some point, as if it had been opened and reconsidered and put away again. He left this, she said. For you. He asked me to give it to you. She paused. I should have given it to you when he died. I looked at the envelope. I wanted to keep you close, she said. I was afraid if you read it you'd leave sooner. I took the envelope. I didn't open it there. I set it on the desk beside me. She watched me. He was proud of you, she said. He never said it out loud the way he should have. The way you needed. But he was. He told me once, she stopped. He told me you were going to be something that nobody in this family was going to be ready for. I sat with that for a long time. Why didn't you protect me? I said finally. When they took my savings. When they made me leave school. When he said I should stay home to care for Dad. Why didn't you say anything? I believed what they told me, she said. That daughters were temporary. That a girl's value was in the family she married into. I believed it so completely I didn't even see what it was costing you. She looked at her cup. I see it now. When it's too late. It's not too late, I said. For you to be different. For how you are with the people around you now. She looked up. But it is too late for it to change what it cost me, I said. I'm not going to pretend that apologies erase years. That's not how it works. She nodded. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she said. I just needed you to know that I see it. Finally. I looked at my mother. At the woman who had told me daughters married out and girls didn't need high educations and a family needed its men. At the woman who had grabbed my arm at the front door to demand I pay for a house I had already cancelled. At the woman who had, in another life, loved me in the incomplete and conditional way she'd been taught to love daughters. At the woman who was sitting in my office drinking tea and trying to understand what she had done. I said, I need some time. That's where I am right now. Not a door closed. Just, time. She nodded. She finished her tea. She left. I read the letter that evening. My father's handwriting was uneven, he'd had a tremor in his last months. The letter had clearly been written toward the end. He wrote, Sloan. By the time you read this, I expect you will have found your own way despite everything. I know what they asked you to give up. I know what I allowed. I was a coward about it. I told myself it was custom, it was tradition, it was how families worked. I was lying to myself and I knew it. You were always the one I didn't have to worry about. And I used that as an excuse not to protect you when I should have. I am sorry for that. I don't expect it to fix anything. Your worth was never in question. Not to me. Not for a day. You were never less valuable because you were born my daughter. Whatever you build, and you will build something, I am sure of it, know that you built it as my daughter and I am proud of you. Dad, there was also a document attached. A trust instrument. Small compared to what I had built since, but not nothing, a portion of his private savings, set aside in my name, separate from the family assets. It had been sitting in a bank account for 4 years, untouched, accumulating interest, waiting for me to come and claim it. He had done this while I was caring for him in his final months. While I was there, in that house, doing what everyone said daughters did. He had been quietly making sure I had something that was mine. I sat with the letter for a long time. The legal transfers completed in the 6th week. The apartment was now formally in my sole name with no family encumbrances. The property Silas had been expecting as a vague inheritance had been clarified in the estate documents, it was mine. The financial support structures were unwound. Everything I had been quietly funding, under the assumption that this was what family meant, was gone. Silas moved into a smaller apartment with Penelope. Whether they would stay together was not my business. Penelope did not get the VP promotion. She stayed at the bank at her existing level, which was not nothing. She had real skills and real education and a real career. But the trajectory she had believed was inevitable had shifted. I heard through mutual professional acquaintances that she had spent time in the aftermath blaming Silas, and blaming bad timing, and eventually, I was told this last part almost with surprise by the person who told me, blaming herself. I hoped that last part was true. Not for my satisfaction. Because it was the only version that would lead somewhere better. My mother settled into the apartment she had always lived in. Silas visited her. I sent her money once a month, not out of obligation in the old sense, but out of a different feeling. The feeling of someone who can afford generosity and chooses it freely rather than under duress. That distinction mattered to me. I did not visit for a while. Then, one Sunday, I did. She made soup. The kind she had made when I was a child. We sat at the kitchen table and she asked about my work and I told her small things, not everything, and she listened without asking me to fund anything or fix anything or sacrifice anything. It was not perfect. But it was a beginning of something that had not existed before. The new house was in a quieter part of the city, further from the center, with a garden that needed attention and rooms that had good light. I moved in on a Saturday in autumn. I had no one helping me, not because I didn't have people who would have come, but because I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to carry things through the door of my own house with my own hands and put them where I chose. That evening I sat on the floor of the main room because there was no furniture yet, and I had a cup of tea from the kettle I'd packed first, and the light was going orange through the windows, and there was no one asking me for anything. My phone buzzed. A message from my legal team confirming the final document transfer. I set the phone face down on the floor beside me. For the first time in longer than I could calculate, the evening was simply mine. No debt I hadn't chosen. No sacrifice being extracted. No brother needing. No mother guilting. No woman who had never met me deciding what I was worth based on what I was carrying. Just a room in a house I owned, paid for with years of work that had always been real even when the people closest to me had called it worthless. I thought about the day I canceled the property purchase. The sales agent's face. The $100,000 processing fee I had described as pocket change, not to be impressive, but because watching my family prioritize a woman who had just compared me to a prostitute had made me understand something I had been circling for years. I thought about standing in that alley listening to Penelope speak and feeling the precise sensation of the last thing holding me in place letting go. They mocked the delivery girl. Then they found out she owned the road beneath their feet. They called her worthless while surviving on the life she had built with her own hands. The daughter they sacrificed became the woman they could never reach again. She spent years trying to earn love from people who only valued sacrifice. In the end, she became free the moment she stopped trying. I picked up my tea. The room was quiet and the light was almost gone and I was, for the first time in a very long time, exactly where I had chosen to be. That was enough. That was everything.